Hi everyone! Welcome to my kitchen. I'm so excited to make this recipe for you. This recipe I learned in the summer. My friend Patricia actually sent it to home office, our home office. They were having a contest for recipes that involved, I think it was cinnamon. So she sent a version of this, and then home office kind of tweaked it a little bit, and we did a kind of a cook along with everybody, which was really super fun. Our test kitchens people were in the test kitchens doing it by Zoom, so it was really fun to do that, and we did it here at home too. And I thought this would be a great recipe to show you guys. It shows some of my favorite products, and also is just delicious. So it's called Pumpkin Donut Holes, and I'm going to share the recipe later on. You'll see the post that has the link for the recipe in it. But I just want to give you a quick kind of little rundown on stuff. So when you make this recipe, it's so freaking good. You are going to either need to have a lot of people around, or if you have neighbors, share them because they are addictive, honestly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make the donut holes this morning, but I'm going to throw them in the freezer. So I'm going to talk to you about what you do once they're baked, but these guys are going in the freezer because we don't need them right now. My girl and my boy have both made cookies this week, so we have a couple of those kicking around, so we don't need that stuff. So I'm featuring the donut hole pan, which is so fun. I mean, if you make anything mini, it just adds the fun factor, increases the fun factor. So I've used this for like the lemon loaf that I normally make. I made them in here, and it has a glaze that you put over top of it once they're out of the oven. So the glaze like dripped right down in, so the whole ball was covered with the glaze. It was so yummy. Any kind of muffins you can do Jell-O in here, little stuffing balls, like all kinds of really cool things. So check out our baking line. This is a super fun pan. We also have like fluted cake pan, full-size minis. We have the mini loaf pan. We have the waffle stick pan. We have the donut pan, the mini donut pan, all kinds of ones. So check them out for sure.
Alarm! 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 Alarm!
There we go. That was just an alarm to remind me to do something, which I'm doing, so we're all good. All right, so we're gonna get started. I'm using the mixing bowl that we have. This came out in the beginning of the fall, so September. It's a nice deep size. It's got nice deep walls, but it also has a nice deep base, which I really like. So I use my mixer from the Flex Plus, which is Stella. I use that in here. I use bamboo spoons. I use scrapers, whatever. It can take anything. So I have my oven preheating to 350, and I'm going to measure out my flour. So when you're measuring your dry ingredients, make sure that you scoop into your measuring cup rather than scooping with your measuring cup. You get a more accurate measurement versus if I was taking this and going in and scooping, it just packs it down more, so you end up getting more of the ingredient into your cup than the recipe actually calls for, than you actually need. So it can affect the results of your final finished recipe. All right, so that was 1 3/4 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So we have 2 different measuring spoon sets. We have the plastic ones that are like this. They're clear, they're flat on the bottom, so you can put anything in them and they won't spill over, whether it's liquid or dry, and they snap together. We have those ones. We also have, they look a little different. This is an old version, and they have a set of 2. So this one goes from a teaspoon up to a tablespoon, and the other one goes from an 1/8 of a teaspoon up to a teaspoon. So you can cover any measurement that you need. Okay, so we want 2 teaspoons of the baking powder. So something I always do is just take the little slider off and make sure I don't have any ingredients down in there. It shouldn't leak to make it spread, but just in case, I just get in the habit of doing that. And then we need a teaspoon each of the Cinnamon Plus and the cinnamon. So if you don't have the Cinnamon Plus that we had last in the holiday season, it was October through the end of December, you can use a pumpkin pie spice. So same with the cinnamon as well. So pumpkin pie spice usually has, I'll tell you what this has in it: cinnamon, Korinji cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, orange peel, cloves, and ginger. So if you don't have the orange peel, you can do cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, cloves, and ginger. That kind of mix. You can Google and find them online as well. And I'm going to get my measuring spoon. my measuring spoon that fits in this ball. The skinny one of this set does, but it's dirty right now. So we want a teaspoon of each of these. So this recipe says it makes 12 servings, so it's 2 donut holes. So it does an entire pan. So you could do a half recipe to get the, if you didn't want it to cook as many at once. But the best thing you could do, honestly, is make these up, put them in the freezer, and then do the finishing touch when you bring them out and have them thawed. All right, and salt. We need about a half a teaspoon of salt. So you can measure it if you have like another vessel for your salt. I'm using our coarse sea and Himalayan salt, and I just kind of eyeball it in there. Okay, so we're gonna whisk everything, but I'm just gonna whisk the dry ingredients together, and then I'm gonna set them aside. Now I'm gonna move on to the other ingredients. So I'm gonna get another bowl. And in this bowl, we're going to have pumpkin. So you get the solid packed pumpkin, like the pure pumpkin, not pumpkin pie filling, because pumpkin pie filling has additives in it, like extra things added, like seasonings and things like that. This is just pumpkin, or if you read the label, sometimes they have other squashes in there, but this is what I'm using. So what I do is, usually a recipe that I'm making doesn't call for a full can, and we buy the big fat cans of pumpkin, like the 28 ounce, almost 400 mils, or almost 800 mils, whatever they are. So I freeze them into increments of usually 2/3 of a cup. I needed 3/4, so I thawed 2, and I'll do something else with the rest of the other one. And I put them, basically take my muffin pan and I line each muffin pan with, sorry, my scraper I was going to use, oh well, I'll use this one. I line each muffin pan with saran wrap, like with plastic wrap, and then I scoop the filling into each one. And then I freeze it in the pan, and then when it's frozen, I take each portion of the pumpkin pie, the pumpkin filling, sorry, the pure pumpkin, and put it into a freezer-safe bag or container. So it's in there, and then anytime I need it, I just thaw it out and use it. So I have my pumpkin here. I'm going to add some brown sugar, and we want a half a cup of brown sugar. Oops. My recipe decided to slide off there. Half cup. When you're looking on the website or through the catalog to shop, you'll notice that the current measure-all cup looks a little different than what I have here. They've just updated the colors, but it's the same product. You just choose what size you want, whether you want the 2 cup, whether you want the the 2 cup, the 1 cup, or the petite, which is a 1/4 cup size. Brown sugar, milk, so I have a half cup of milk here. I also want 1/3 of a cup of oil. It says you can use canola or avocado, so I'm using avocado. One egg. Ooh. Sorry, I just noticed I have a piece of shell in there, so I'm just going to move that because it'll be easier to fish that out of the small measuring cup than it will be to get it right out of the big bowl. So hang on a sec. Where did you go? This is not part of the recipe, but ooh, I'm sure it happened to you guys too before. There we go. There we go. Egg, a teaspoon of vanilla, or if you have I have an extra one downstairs, our double strength vanilla that we sold again over the holidays. I have one extra one I'm kind of hiding downstairs. Instead, I'll just use this stuff for today. There we go. I'm just going to whisk that together. So I'm using the mix and masher as my whisk today, but if you like to use an actual traditional whisk, I highly recommend our stainless steel ones because they don't move. The wires are attached to we have two of them. Our wires are attached to the handle, so they're not gonna splay out and go all wonky on you. They actually hold their shape. I've had this one for, I'm gonna say 15 years. Still looks as great as the day I got it. So it definitely has some longevity in it. Okay, so I've got this. I wanna mix it till it's smooth, and then I'm gonna take my dry ingredients. I'm just gonna pour them all together. This scraper that I'm using was a gift that I earned through Pampered Chef. Pampered Chef was started over 40 years ago, and we had an incentive that we could earn this scraper as a gift. And it has a quote from our founder, which is really cool. It says, "Food brings people together," which is so true, all right? I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you have, something similar to me, but when you think about gathering with your favorite people, a lot of times you're thinking about, what can I have to eat or drink with these guys? What can we munch on? What new recipe can I make is what I like to do. Some people are crazy or like me and thinking, what recipe could I make to try out on these people? A brand new recipe, and I'm gonna have these guys be my taste testers. All right, so this came together really nice and quickly. So what you wanna do is get your donut hole pan prepped for the batter. So I'm going to use my spritzer. So the way the spritzer works, if you've used ours before, awesome. If you have not, I just want to give you a heads up on it. So there's a white line that you can see where it is. Do not fill the oil above that line. That's tip number one. Tip number two, don't store this in a hot place. Don't store it next to your stove or anything like that, because the heat that radiates from that will expand the plastic. And you don't want to do that. Tip number three, and this is, I think, one of the most important, every time you're done spraying, turn the collar and release any pressure that is still built up in there. If you don't, this lid won't go down properly, but also you'll end up getting it gummed up, getting the pipe, the little tube inside gummed up, and it won't spray properly. So just remember, release it, and you're good to go. So because of the little gatherer, there's a little bulb down there, and that's what gathers the oil up. If you don't have enough oil in there, it's not going to be able to grab the oil up. So I recommend take your pan, hold it like this, and just spray. You can do it in each well. This is just canola oil in here. So it's just the oil in the air. There's nothing added to it. I know some recipes will tell you, like, use a nonstick cooking spray. But have you ever checked out the ingredients in those? I don't want to do that personally, but that's what you do and that's what works for you, go for it. So I just released that. You heard the little psh a little bit, right? And tighten it back up, and it is good to go. So then take paper towel or a cloth or something, and then just wipe over the edges, the top of the pan basically, to get the excess oil that's sprayed on there. Get it off, because if you leave it on there, it has a tendency to get gummed up and sticky. That's what that sticky dark residue ends up getting on your pans, is just not clearing out the oil. So you don't need very much oil, but you could do that. And you could use, if you don't have a spritzer, but you have a basting brush, use that to brush the wells of them. So you just take your scoop. I have the medium scoop, which is 2 tablespoons. So you just take your scoop and scoop them in like so. So these only take about 10 to 12 minutes to bake, so it's a really quick throw together recipe as well. If you like nuts or raisins, you can certainly add those into the mixture as well. So just keep that in mind. You can change it up like that. If you want to use fresh ginger instead of a dried ginger, you can do that. Just it's going to be more pungent, which some people love. So you can keep that in mind as well. So you can see, I mean, this does not take much to do. I know I mentioned when we kicked off the show on our party on Tuesday that I love to bake. So I'm in my happy place right here doing this kind of thing. I do have, and I'll share the link later if you aren't already in there, I have a couple of communities that you can be part of. After the party's over, the fun can still continue in there. So I have one on Facebook. I have another one on a new platform that Pampered Chef developed called Table, which is really fun and cool. So if you don't want to be on social media, you have that option. And then the other one is my email community. So you can get in on any one of those. And I share recipes and tips and things like that. And when I have different promotions or special events, I make sure you guys know about them as well. All right, so those are pretty full. I have a little bit of batter left. This helps settle the batter and helps pop any little air bubbles that are in there. So I'm just going to clear. I have a couple. I was a little bit messy, so I have some spots where the batter is on the pan. That is good. All right, so this is going to go in the oven and bake, like I said, for 10 or 12 minutes. Okay, so this is gonna keep me on track. So when they come out of the oven, you want to let them cool for a couple of minutes in the pan, and then take them out, release them onto a cooling rack. Let them cool for about 2 minutes. Sorry, they should pop. They'll pop right out of the pan as soon as you pull them out. Then you want to let them cool just for a couple of minutes so they're cool enough to handle. You take melted butter, you dunk each donut hole into melted butter, and then you roll it in a cinnamon sugar mixture. I'm telling you guys, these are so addictive. When I made them this summer, I called my sister, she lives right next door, and I said, can I send some of these over because we're gonna eat them all in the next 15 minutes if they aren't out of this house, because they were so good. They're nice and tender and oh, so good. And the butter and the cinnamon sugar, oh man, it's incredible. And so my nephew said to me the next day, he says, "You're right, Aunt Carrie, those are addictive. I'm glad we didn't have any more. I would have eaten too many." So they are really, really good. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Some of these products I use, like I said, they're some of my favorites because I use them all the time. The measuring cups. We go from a quarter cup up to a full cup of the dry, and it has a 2/3 cup and a 3/4 cup, which not a lot of sets do these days, so that's really cool. The measure-all cup, perfect for anything goopy like the pumpkin I used today, or peanut butter or honey or things like that. The mixing bowl, the scoops, the scrapers, the baking pans, like all of them are some faves. Oh, and this, which also I use as a timer for myself at bedtime. I like to read or do like a Sudoku puzzle or something like that before I go to sleep, and time gets away from me, so I set this to make sure I don't work on that too late or do that too late. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed what we've been doing so far. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have an awesome rest of your day.